You know, back when I was 19 years old, I was given the best piece of advice that I've ever received. I was told, Daryl, when you stop fighting, the fighting stops. Let's talk about that. Hello and welcome to When I Stop Fighting, the podcast. My name is Daryl Dittmer. Today I'm joined by Omar Garcia. Omar and his partner are the founders of the Omziel Healing Sanctuary, and these are Omar's words about his journey that I found beautiful and compelling. I can now say with appreciation that growing up in the streets of Brooklyn, New York was an important part of my life and growth. There, I certainly made bad choices, but that's how it is. If you hang around the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. I say that all the time to people. Rough-edged and large-hearted, I am no longer controlled by the things that used to own me. I am perfect, as we all are, and it is my embodied understanding of my perfection that has liberated me. I am a testament to the ability of humans to take healing into their own hands and in community and transcend the past. Welcome, Omar. Great to see you, man.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you, Daryl. Thank you so much for that wonderful intro thing, man. I almost forgot I wrote that stuff.
I appreciate you too, brother. That's beautiful. I loved it when I read it. And, you know, to me, it speaks to, you know, we are who we are where we are. And when we decide to utilize our experiences to move forward in a better way in our lives, that's when things can and will change to the point where, and I know, you know, you've experienced this and I've experienced this. Life is better than I ever could have imagined it could be. And I feel like that's the same for you. You have that wonderful, boundless, beautiful energy. And that emanates from you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I hear that often, which is great because I didn't hear any of those things in my former life, that's for sure. But what I can tell you, Daryl, is that I began to notice that when I was alone with myself, you know, in the quiet moments, because we all have those moments, I started to notice that there was these voices that were talking to me, or I thought it was me, actually. And I started to feel a little bit different and recognize some of these things. And then I started noticing that there was things that were wrong. I didn't like what was happening around me. I really didn't. You know, I thought I was the smartest guy in the room. And sometimes I still think that. I got to catch myself sometimes, right? But I started to notice that things were not exactly the way I wanted them to be. I was not deeply happy. I was sort of content and thought that I was controlling situations. But when I really wasn't, I was really out of control. And it was in those quiet moments, those times, those places. I like to call them, it's a place that we go to, you know, whether it's at night or in the shower or you're walking, we all get this. I started to notice that when I was in those places right there, I said, wait a minute, this is not going to control me. There has to be a way out of this. So I started to hatch my escape, you know, and I started researching, trying to find different things. I went to silent retreats. I went ashram. I tried different belief systems and meetings and gatherings, and I tried many different things, but nothing seemed to stick. I wanted them to stick. I tried really hard. You know, I wanted to be a good soldier and say I could really do this, but somehow, Daryl, I found myself back in it again, you know, and I just wanted out, you know. But it was only in those private moments that I started to realize that something was wrong. And then I started doing some things about it.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's, you know, it takes what it takes. And I'd love to delve a little deeper into your, you know, sort of story of origin, because I'm a big believer that, you know, there's things we can give other people, but there's nothing more important in terms of helping others with their lives than our stories, because people can relate or people can not relate, or people can pick out a little nugget or a little seed, And sometimes our stories won't affect somebody for years. Maybe they're like, oh yeah, Omar said that 5 years ago. And now it's become part of my experience, and now I understand what he was saying. So in relating that, I believe that our stories are incredibly powerful. I mean, that's how the ancients came up, right? They used their stories, and they kept stories going for centuries. And I just think that's a beautiful part of what we have to share. So if you wouldn't mind sharing your story and how you got to be who you are and where you are, I think we'd love it.
That's wow. Let me see if I could give you the short version. I was born in Manhattan in a hospital there, and then spent most of my time in Brooklyn. I'm from the tri-state area of New York City. So this is a Brooklyn accent, by the way. And my old man left when I was 9, and he probably checked out emotionally years before that. And there was lots of fighting that was going on. It was riddled with alcohol. And just imagine, just for a moment, that you're a 5, 6, 7-year-old and you're enjoying a holiday party with your cousins and your aunts and uncles, and there's music, and the food is in the air, smelling great. It's your culture. You're so happy to be with your family because it's the holidays. And then a fist fight breaks out right in the middle of the living room, right? So this was something that was pressed upon me. I didn't know that it affected me so deeply. I didn't know. Just till I got older, then I started to realize and started to delve into those things, those deep, dark shadows that I was pushing down every day. Once I started to unravel it and go through it a bit, I said, wow, it would be a surprise if I didn't fall into alcohol and being chemically dependent, right? So here's my old man. He left when I was 9, and then the teenage years started to come. So it was very crucial, those times. And the streets were right there, Daryl, with their arms open. Come on in. We're your family. We're your friends. We love you. We're loyal to you too, which was all lies. I didn't know that until I got older. I thought that was my family. They were there. Oh, they were always there. Every time I went to the streets, they were there. And then they were introducing me to things too. Like, yeah, try some of this. It's all right. Oh, you're going to feel great. I take it. So go ahead. It's okay. There I was. I was going deeper and deeper, deeper, deeper into this hole that I didn't know. I just thought like, hey, this is the way it's supposed to be. I've seen my older, uncles and aunts. I saw them doing these things too. I mean, maybe not all of it out in the open, but I could see that this was a doorway in order for me to go in. And in my opinion, Daryl, I believe that alcohol is really the gateway drug, not the other ones that they say. It's that one, because it lowers your inhibitions and it pushes you into these places that you wouldn't normally go in your right mind. You wouldn't do those things.
And it's accessible and it's cheap, right?
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's in our society. I mean, like, holidays, let's drink. Hey, we're getting together. Let's get a bottle. Hey, the clothes came out good, nice and clean. Let's celebrate with something to drink. It's hot in the summer. Let's have a beer. Oh, it's cold. Let's have some rum. So there I was in the streets. I picked up all sorts of things, cliques and gangs and, different groups that I was moving in, during that time in New York City. It was riddled with organized gangs. I don't know if you would say organized, but there was like hundreds of gangs, some people say, and you couldn't move from one neighborhood to the other, or you couldn't even walk like another 10 or 20 block radius if they knew you were from the other neighborhood. It was that kind of atmosphere. And then New York City was filthy and it was noisy. I mean, not that it's so clean now, but if you saw it back like in the 80s and 90s, you would know what I'm talking about. So it was just that atmosphere of like, hey, just do whatever you want. Like this life is yours, and just take it, just own it. When in reality, it was quite the opposite. I was ruining everything, my relationships, my finances. I ended up homeless for a time. I mean, I was sleeping, Daryl, occasionally in the emergency room, waiting room, Why? Because I knew that that's where people went and sat and waited anyway. So there I was with my duffel bag of my life possessions there inside the emergency room and just sitting, making believe that I was waiting to see a doctor, tried to sleep a few hours, but then I was couch surfing as well. And, it was just an ugly scene. I was jumping from one woman to the next one. And when they threw me out, I went to the next one and trying to hold on to these little jobs. I was doing like messenger work and, copy boy and errands and trying to get into the financial district of Wall Street. Anything that I can. I had to lie, lots of lies on my resume, lies in my personal life, lies when I met people. Then I had to keep up those lies. But like I said earlier, it was just those quiet times. I knew that there was something wrong. And I have other, cousins and family members. I have a brother, two brothers also. And, some of them, have not been able to get out of some of those situations. And then I think about that, Daryl, like what made me different? And I feel that what made me different was that I really wanted it, like badly, no matter what. I was going to do it. I was going to find it. I just felt that I was on this roller coaster ride, right? And I wanted to find out, when did I get on this ride and who's driving it? I'm looking in the front, like, who's got could they stop it? I want to get off now. And I just couldn't get off, man. I couldn't, but I just started doing some things, disciplining myself, like taking these small increments, these little baby steps. I would fall back into it. It would like be weeks. I would be like swollen and it was just terrible. But then I'd clean up and try to, beg for the job with lies. I was sick, my family, just kept going. That's it.
No, keep going, man.
Of course. So I just kept going.
Yeah.
I just wanted a way out. I happened to find a woman, and I fell in love, again, right? It was it was like changing socks. I was carrying on these multiple relationships, because that's what my old man taught me anyway. I saw him with mom, but then like every time when I saw him going out, there seemed to be always another woman there, which when I got older, that bothered me. Like, I just want to be with him, and then I started doing that too with my child, you see, because that's how it goes. We don't want to do these things, but we end up doing them. I turned out to be my old man. Same thing, like alcohol, women abusing relationships, multiple, jumping from job to job, not being disciplined, not being solid in any area, So I picked up those things. And,
It's like we're searching for something that is impossible to achieve by those methods, right? And I'm a big believer. We're all looking for, fulfillment and purpose and financial security and great relationships and, like that sort of thing. And we're all looking for that. I truly believe that, but what avenues are we going down to find it? But I'm also a firm believer that, we need to go down some of those avenues to discover that's not what we want. One of the things I've said a lot, and I haven't said it too much lately, but most of the things that I've learned in my life have to do not with what I want, but with what I don't want. Sounds like you're the same, Omar.
Oh, for sure. I've noticed that lots of people say, well, write down what is it that you want, right? But I noticed, Daryl, that writing down the things that you don't want helps. Like, you want to put down your goals. Yeah, I'm not going to binge watch Netflix anymore, or at least for a week, or I'm not going to self-pleasure myself for a couple of weeks. I'm not going to look at low vibrational things, such as porn and things or alcohol. I'm going to be abstinence. I'm going to give it a week, man. I'm going to give it 5 days. I don't care. Like, let me go on Saturday. Why am I on it on Monday and Tuesday? That's it. So.
You know, it everything that you mentioned, you know, the thing that's important to me, and it all sounds like the same thing, is,
Mhm.
you know, we're fighting life. We're fighting against the tide. And you talked about that quietness and that solitude, and that's when we're in the groove, right? Like that's when we're in the flow, and we know when we're not in the flow. It's when we're standing up to the tide and we're saying, "Oh, it's not going to, just like that fight and that resistance, instead of, you know, the surrender and the allowing and the, you know, taking charge of me."
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? I mean, I look at that and I hear your story, and I hear so many similarities to my story, which I was
Mhm.
fortunate to be able to share on your podcast recently, which
Mhm.
is really
Mhm.
cool.
Mhm.
And we had a
Mhm.
great discussion, but
Mhm.
it's I characterize my story as the fight, as
Mhm.
fighting life.
Mhm.
And the less I fight life, then I
Mhm.
learn, oh man,
Mhm.
I'm fighting myself.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I have to let go of that fight, you know? So it's all about the things we can let go of. It sounds like you think
Mhm.
similarly.
Of course. What I noticed is that if you can imagine, when you ask a fish about the water, what does the fish say? What water? What are you talking about? So for me, and I'm sure for yourself as well, it's very similar. Like these things, they just seep into our background and we don't even notice they're there anymore. You know, Bruce Lipton speaks about the subconscious, about that little record that's playing in the back of your head, right? It's usually that record is usually set in the first 7 years or so of our lives, you see. So that's why I mentioned that early in the story about coming up and having these events that occurred in what's supposed to be a sacred space with family, and you are a young person and you're in the care of these so-called adults who are raising you, right? But what they did was they set the stage for that little record in the background, and then the record is playing there, and I didn't even notice that it was playing. Why? Because it's been there for so long. It was only in those quiet moments that I said, wait a minute, I hear that record now. Where is it in the room? I'm going to start looking around. I'm moving this chair and I'm moving this curtain over here and these flowers. There's something in this room that is playing, and I want to get to that record, and it took me a while. And you speak about those fights, like, yes, all of those things that I speak about in the background, once you start being aware of them, oh no, baby, oh no, it's on. That right, Daryl. Then the heat goes up. It's like, oh no, we're not letting you go. Oh no, no, no. This is your life. This is how you're supposed to be, right? You hear people like that. Oh, I'm not a morning person. Oh, I don't run. I'm not a runner. I'm not a workout. I'm not a meditator. Like what? Really? That's not how that goes, man. You have to, fight against that thing, right? What is that thing? That thing is that complacency, that comfort, right? This is the whole environment that we're living in. Like I could just go up the store, up to the block the store right now. I could get a bottle of liquor if I wanted. And it wouldn't be too far to find some drugs too. And then, porn, oh, it's a few clicks away. Few, maybe one or two, or something like that. But what that does is that it pushes you back. It's like you're losing time. Some people say, well, I'm just here. I'm not doing anything. I'm not moving. No, there's no such thing. You're going backwards. If you're not moving forward, you're going back, you know. And then these are some of the things that we have to realize in our environment in order to take control of them.
It's choices, right? It's all choices. You know, what are we deciding to do today? Who are we deciding to be today? Right? I mean, that's what it all boils down to. You mentioned that that little voice, right? And I call it the still small voice, because that voice gets louder over time. It used to be the still small voice. Now it's like, dude, you know what to do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But that used to be the bad stuff that would say, dude, do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and then that little voice that I kind of look at it as what resonates with me. That's the voice, that's what knows what to do. And it's such a beautiful thing to be able to listen to that. You had mentioned the room, moving the furniture, moving the drapes. The thing that I was happening in my mind at that time was the room is me. The room is inside of me. So I've got to move some stuff, and I got to look, and I got to pay attention to all those boxes that are in the attic, right? And move around and figure out what's going on up there, because while all that noise is happening, that little voice is something that gets squashed. So we have to, and I find that removing myself from the noise and finding quiet is what helps take care of that voice that's trying to get me to do stuff that's destructive, and allow that little resonant voice to start speaking.
That little voice that you speak of, we call it the roommate, right? I got that from Michael Singer in The Untethered Soul. If you've read this book, this is a powerhouse of book, also very simple read. And he speaks about, imagine if you were living with a roommate, and that roommate wouldn't shut up, like just kept talking and talking, and it wasn't paying rent, right? You would get up and you would do something about him. You were like, yo, listen, bro, you got to go, man, like some way or another. But yet we never do nothing about that roommate in our head. We just let it tell us. It's been with us for so long, we think it's just us. It's like that record playing in the background, right? But it's not us. But how do we know that it's not us? We have to be still. We have to wait, and we have to start paying attention to that voice. That's all. It's just an awareness, right? Not too long ago, I went away for about 5 or 6 days to a silent retreat with meditation, and it was quite profound. Right. So here I am. I'm in my position, Lotus. I'm away from the city, man. Good stuff. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to pay attention to my thoughts. There I am, just meditating. Now the voice is there, like telling me, oh, yeah. I'm like, this shit is loud. Like, I kid you not, Daryl. It was loud. I was impressed and like really bothered too. Like, I was like, this is crazy. How do you shut this up? But the way you do it is that you just keep coming back to that and just keep looking at it. It's like exercise. You're not going to go to the gym and you're not going to press 150-pound bench press right out the back. It's not going to happen. You're going to do the bar. You're going to do 10 or 20 pounds. That's how it's going to work. So there I was, just coming back again to every day, sitting there, staying with my breath, paying attention. And then I started to notice that I'm looking at it and it's getting a little bit more quieter, and then I do different mantras also, like try to stick with it and staying with my breath, and then, Daryl, man, I kid you not, I made a breakthrough. Everything went quiet. And I mean, really quiet. I was there and I was like, that's it? Like, this is incredible. This is what it feels like to have no mind. Like, I was just in it. How long did it last? I don't know. 3 minutes, 5. But it was blissful. It was a breakthrough, brother. So I advise it to many people, anyone listening.
That's so cool. I love stories like that. And the amazing thing is, I don't hear enough of them. I'd love to hear those stories often, where that silence is achieved. And you had mentioned earlier on about people saying, oh, I'm not a runner. I'm not a meditator. I'm not this, I'm not that, or I've been this my whole life, and my parents were this and my grandparents were this, so this is what I have to be. And the best thing about life is, if we take advantage of this fact, is we get to choose our journey, right? We get to choose. We don't choose what happens to us. but we choose what we do and how we show up and how we present. And, the product, I like to say the product that we put out into the world is ourselves. So what is that product going to be? Is it going to be a product where I'm taking care of myself, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally? Or is it going to be a product where I'm messing around and I'm eating too much and I'm drinking too much and I'm,
Right.
doing all these things that are destructive? And I think that's one of the most important things you had mentioned earlier on about you started to pay attention to that voice and you started to get a little quiet and something was telling you go in a different direction. And we're getting those messages all the time. I'm a firm believer we're getting those messages all the time. The question is, are we listening?
For sure. And we should be, right? Because all these messages that we're getting, we get something like 10 or 20,000 messages a day, right? From everywhere. It comes from the internet, the billboards. As you can see, you're driving down the highway. Now they got TV screens on these messages are everywhere. What are they saying? I'm not tall enough. I'm not short enough. I'm not white enough. I'm not black enough. I'm not cool enough. I'm not smart enough, right? All of these things. But in the intro, you mentioned about a bit of that bio that I wrote saying that we are perfect, right? You meet lots of people, they walk around, but nobody's perfect, right? I'm a strong believer that that's not even possible, right? Because God doesn't make imperfect things. You see, when you look out into the forest and you see a deer running by, you go, oh my God, that's beautiful. That's God. That's perfect. But then when we look in the mirror, we go, nobody's perfect. You see, so that kind of keeps us down. You see, because the reality is that we are perfect. We're perfectly imperfect. Okay, so we're born perfect and we pass on perfect too. In between, we pick up some garbage. That's true. You see, but the fact is that there is a movie that's playing right now, and you're the star of it. You're the producer and all of that. I'm sure you've heard this before, but it is the way it is. We're creating our reality. Many of the masters or wise men or whatever you want to call it, just read some books. You'll see they're saying basically the same thing, is that we're creating this world that we live in. You like your life or you don't like it. You're making it. You don't have to stay in that job. You don't have to stay in that relationship. You don't have to, be drinking alcohol. You don't have to. You might think that you do, and we're not our thoughts, by the way. Thoughts are just thoughts. And we should just, again, observe them and just see them like clouds passing by. Don't cling on to them. That's how we suffer, But it's our movie. Let's make it the best movie that we can. Once I started getting clear, Daryl, oh no, I wanted more clarity. Like once I said, oh wait a minute. Oh no, this is where it's at now. Oh no, this is where it's at. I started pushing my body. I started joining these obstacle course race courses, where you're running in these ski lodges, up mountains and doing all of this jumping through hoops and just like. And I said, yeah, let me see if I could do that, And with the first one, oh my God, it was terrible. Like I was screaming out loud, like, my thighs, my glutes, and all these things. And people were trying to help me with all kinds of, gummies and, stuff. And I was like, man, I went to the gym. I thought I was okay, but I said, I have to start training. And that's what I started doing. I started pushing my body now and realizing that this part of the head that's next to your eyes, what do we call it? The temple. Why? Because this is your temple. We are the God of our own temple, right? So I started pushing my body more and more and challenging myself even harder. I went longer distances, Then I started running 2 miles. And 2 miles, I ran that for a long time, 2 miles. Then I said, I have to push more. And then I did 5, 6. Now I do 7 miles every day. I could do 7 days a week. And then I do long runs, like 15 miles, 16, 17 miles, like that. But it's all here. It's all in the temple. You have to get this right, Daryl. The mind. You have to get that right. You have to know, hey, I'm in charge here. think of a boat, right? The guy who's driving the ship on the top, he's not listening to the guy who's throwing coal in the furnace saying turn left, and he's like, oh, left, okay, No, you're the captain, you're the ship, you're the lieutenant, you're the one that says yes, no, left, right. So that's my story.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so interesting that we can get so hung up on, what's going on in the world and blame everything. And I don't talk about politics, but we can blame our lives on politics. We can blame our lives on religion. We can blame our lives on the food companies or whatever, we can blame our lives on all kinds of stuff. But the bottom line is I'm the one in charge of what's going on with me. You had mentioned perfect, and I love this movie. It's called The Last Samurai. I don't know if you've seen it, but
yes.
But the one of the main characters is, he's always looking at the blossoms and looking for on these trees, and he's looking for the perfect blossom. And I haven't found the perfect blossom yet, and I keep looking for the perfect blossom. And at the end of the movie, and I don't want to spoil it, but he's not doing well. And off in the distance, he sees a tree with the blossoms falling off of it. And he says, they are all perfect. And that's just such a beautiful moment. And it's resonated with me. I remember it, all the time, where we don't have to be quote unquote perfect to be perfect. And you had mentioned imperfectly perfect. And it's completely cool that we're that. It doesn't matter if I have a full head of hair. It doesn't matter what I look like.
That's right. Your education,
right?
Your money status, what kind of car you drive.
Nothing.
No.
Yeah, nothing to do with that. So that was cool. That really hit me when you mentioned that about not being perfect. And the other thing I thought of is, people talk about, oh, this person is self-made. I'm a self-made person. Well, that's good news and bad news potentially, because we're all self-made. And either we decide to be self-made in, a direction or a trajectory that's, I like to look at it as, we're either a northerly direction or a southerly direction. We're in charge of how that's going on, right? We're in charge of how that works. We're in charge of self-making ourselves. And you mentioned it, what we do with our temple.
Yes. Oftentimes we see some of these people, like nowadays, you're a celebrity, like, wow, it's like you could go viral with just about anything these days. It's just the life that we live in. They're keeping us with all these little shiny things, and people too. So oftentimes we look at someone and we go, wow, man, that guy's good. I love that guy. He's perfect. I love what he's saying and all that. And then any day now you go, what? He's messing with kids? Or he's a heroin addict? Oh, why? You see? So we should be careful of that. You see? Those people are perfect in their own right, but not perfect for everyone else in that manner. No. They're just human, just like we all are, and they fall too. So what I usually say to people is that take the message. You like the message, take the message. I could bang out a whole dozen names of guys that I really like, man. They're on it, like they're on their game and all that, but it's the message only.
Right. It reminds me of when I got involved in the 12 steps when I was young, and just a phenomenal roadmap for life for me. But one of the things they used to say around the tables in the 12 steps, I don't know if they still say it, but carry the message, not the person. Carry my message, share my story. And this goes back to something you said a little earlier, which I think is incredibly important, that, you were able to move yourself away from a way of life that wasn't solid. But there are people even in your family, and I have people in my family that haven't been able to move out of that.
Mm.
And that's part of what I need to sort out for myself in terms of who do I want to be surrounded by?
Mhm.
Family can be, and you mentioned it earlier, family can be just as toxic as anybody else, if not more so,
Mm.
because, for me, I feel an allegiance to family,
Mhm.
but I've learned, in the intervening years that family can be really poisonous for you, and you can't continue to hold somebody up that doesn't want to be held up. And
Mhm.
and I think that's incredibly important for us to keep in mind with everybody. It's
Mhm.
very important who we surround ourselves with.
Yeah, well, you have to watch those family members for sure. Oh, they're there. Like you could switch your friends, but family, they're just there. You're stuck with them, you know. But you have to watch them too, because growing up, I learned all those things from my older cousins. You know, they were like, "Yeah, drink this. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I won't tell." You know, and it just kept going from there. You know, and then you've got your family and then friends too. That's oftentimes they could be closer than family, you know. But I've had some guys, we've known each other like for years, for decades, but every time I speak to him, he's talking about the old job or the old things or the old clubs or the old bars, like, or the old women. Like, I'm like, really, bro? Like, so I have another good brother of mine that was telling me, hey, I'm in this industry and I'm really trying to make it. And I was talking with my cousin and he told me, you're not gonna make it, bro, because you don't this and you don't that. I said, listen to me, bro. Get rid of him. Get rid of him. I don't mean like, call him up and say, I'm not gonna be with you anymore. I'm not gonna call you, hang up the phone. No, not like that, because they're nice people. You love them. They'll be with you, they'll always be there. But distance yourself from them. Don't make yourself available to them, right? Because once you start getting clear, you're not going to want to be with them anyway, because you start changing, you start noticing like, hey, my thoughts are different. I'm not talking about the latest movie that's out. Like, I don't, me personally, I don't even watch movies. I don't watch TV. My kids watch the TV and stuff like that, and I might watch with them a show, some kind of cartoon movie or something. But any of that, no, I'm just focused. I'm focused. Why? I want more of that. I want to be better, right? Whoever made us, Daryl, they made this Ferrari Testarossa that I'm in. I'm in a high performance vehicle. I should treat it like that, man. Take it out for a test run. And when you're a Ferrari, you don't want to hang out with Fords, Kias. You just don't. They can't keep up.
Yeah, I mean, I have a very strong no bullshit policy,
Mm,
which I keep for myself. I do it for myself, but I also do it for the people in my life. And if you're gonna try to feed me that stuff,
mm.
I'm not having it. I'm just not having it. I'll fire off a couple of warning shots, and but I just at some point I'm going to show you the door, and at some
Mhm,
point I'm just going to say, you know what, I just can't. I can't do it, and
mhm,
like you
mhm.
said, I have to distance myself.
Yeah. I usually tell people, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I usually tell people, you can't climb up a mountain with a barrel of rocks.
Right on your back, yeah.
It's not
And
gonna
some of
happen.
those, and I want to qualify this by saying, everybody is fine in their own way, and I'm not saying they're a bad person. I'm not saying they just don't fit in my life either at this point or
Mhm,
anymore. I'm
mhm,
sure there's other people they're good for, and
mhm.
other people are good for them.
Right, right.
It's just, you can tell when there's that rub, right?
Mhm,
And there's that
mhm.
that friction and that part
Yeah,
where
yeah,
it's just not a fit, and that's
yeah.
completely okay. I
Mhm.
think we do more damage to ourselves if we try to make it fit instead of allowing it to
Mhm.
not fit.
Yeah. You start noticing that they stay away from you too. I kind of connected with that high frequency sound that you put, for the rats. you know Once that high frequency starts going on, You don't hear it, but when they hear it, they're not going to stick around anymore. They're just not. Because, here you are like, hey, let's go out, let's take a run, let me exercise. I'm doing this yoga class, and these betterments. I'm reading this book, and all of these type of things. And then they don't have anything to say about that. In fact, you've ever seen them, Daryl, where they turn off, right? It's almost like some switch, like you didn't even see the switch. You like say something and they go, "Gee." They're not
Right.
even in the room anymore, and it's fine. It's fine. And it's
It is
okay.
fine. Yeah, it's completely cool. I'm not sending them off. I can still love people from a distance. I don't have to have them be at the party all the time. Or
Oh.
sometimes, like you said, they'll just take themselves away. So, I've been wondering, and we talked about it a little bit, but what is do you have a recipe of practices or things that you do on the daily that you're like, you know what, this has really helped me? If you wouldn't mind sharing those kinds of things, I think it would really help our listeners.
Excellent. Well, first, I want to say that we are the Omziel Healing Sanctuary, and we're located in North Bergen, New Jersey. We do a couple of things here, right? We have events, gatherings. We do men's retreats, by the way. We just had our first international men's retreat. Phenomenal, phenomenal. So we do many things here. One of our staples is the breath work with an ice plunge. So the breath work alone, it quiets the frontal lobe. That's the monkey mind, the one that's chattering all the time. Where's it located? It's located, scientists say, right here in the front. It's a small kind of walnut shaped part of your brain, and it's the new part in the evolution of humans. The older parts reside deeper inside. Some people say like the reptilian brain. So we do breath work. And then we get into the ice plunge, which is another whole list of benefits there also. But again, it quiets that mind. You can't think of anything when you're in the ice. Like, hey, did I turn off the stove before I left the house? Nothing. It's just you and the breath. So these are some of the things that we do here. But in my daily life, there are a number of pillars that we try to share with anyone who comes in for any type of deep work. And the first one is there is a higher power that resides outside of you, right? Whatever name you want to put on it. I'm not talking dogma or any of those things. No, that higher power, we should recognize that there's something bigger and stronger than us outside of us, right? Once you recognize that, you're able to humble yourself and sort of like bow down to it, submit. These are all words. They're semantics. So fill in whatever words you want, right? So first there's that. So when I rise, I'm grateful. I have another chance to do this again. Wow, thank you. So there's always that, and that walks with me all day. I try my best to be aware of that, whether it's in the birds, in the leaves, in the sun, in the cold outside, or the hot sun, or anything. So that's the first thing. The next thing is that I'm a self-aware person. I didn't just wake up like this. It took me time to learn to be self-aware that I am a man and that I have certain protocols that I have in my life, and also a point of integrity, right? Because integrity is something that you do when no one is looking. You see? So I know that I'm capable of great compassion. And you mentioned love also. That's a powerful one, bro. Like if people don't feel love, start cleaning out all the junk from your life, man. You'll start feeling it, living it. You not only experience love, but you step into it too. You are the embodiment of love. So here I am, my higher power. Then I'm self-aware also. Then my relationships, right? I start to look around because when we get older and we're on that last leg, most people say, oh, bring me my cars, bring me my money, bring me my house. No, they go, bring me my family, bring me my kids, bring me my wife, bring me my loved one. Why? Because our relationships are super, super important. We should cultivate those things. So once you start looking around, start seeing your relationships and start treating them properly. Give your mom a call, man. Right? Something like that. Write someone a letter, write them a card, and get their address, mail it to them. Something like that. Your children, spend time with them. Get away from the TV and these other shiny objects. So cultivate those relationships. That's another one. And then I have a series I spoke about the protocols. When I get up in the morning, we spoke about this, me and you, Daryl, before, right? I make my bed. That's the first thing, man. I make sure, even if I leave and my wife is there or my kids, and when they get up, I go back to the bed and I fix it. They don't do it, that's fine. This is on me. This is my movie. So I fix my bed. Then there's the 16 ounces of room temperature water with the Celtic sea salt that I know that you've been taking now, that I've suggested it, right? The Celtic salt, Barbara O'Donnell, I think was the one who turned me on to that. If you can look her up. And then I take sea moss, which is a seaweed that's harvested off of the coast of Jamaica or someplace pristine. It's for good gut health, because we need good gut health. You need those good things in your gut. Why? Because scientists know that they have found brain-like cells in your intestines. So we share a symbiotic relationship with our intestines. So when you walk into a room, you feel it. Ooh, I shouldn't be here. Where do you feel it? Right there in your gut. You're like, oh, man. Or you step in, you go, man, this place feels great. I love the energy. Where you feel it? Right there in your gut. So these are some of the things. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. I had some gut issues when I was, in the business world, and it was stress and it was all kinds of stuff. And, that's where a lot of it shows up. I think it was either the ancient Greeks or the Romans that says all disease starts in the gut.
That's right.
And I believe that to be true. So, I take care of my body. You mentioned so many wonderful things that I think are just absolutely crucial. And from the getting up and making our beds to being grateful, to having integrity, to having, cultivating our relationships. We have relationships that just sort of happen because we're on the planet, but what are we doing to make sure that we keep integrity and keep gratitude in our relationships? Every day I thank, the power that is, and the longer I go, the less I define that. Whatever it is, I don't care what it is. I know it's there.
Right.
But I say thank you for all of the people in my life, and even the people in my life that teach me the lessons that I need to learn because of one of my reactions or something that I'm feeling. Those are probably more important than the people that I have these wonderful relationships with all the time, because I'm learning things, right? So yeah, that's cool. I always like to ask that question because I think it's important, because there are a number of things we can do all day. Like you said, we could binge Netflix, or which I don't recommend, or we can do these healthy things that help get us off on the right track every single day, and quieting our mind every single day before some of the noise starts. Some of the noise is going to start. So how am I going to enter that world?
Right.
And you just explained so many wonderful things. So thank you.
There are some. My pleasure, man. This is what we do here at the Omziel. We help to change lives. It's a calling for us. It's not like, oh, I'm not doing anything today. This is fun. It is fun, but it's a calling. We feel that whatever that power is, has told us, to go serve people, serve humans, and that's what we're doing. And how do we do that? We have some tools that we give people, and here are some of them. What we do is we take a desk calendar. You can go to a 99-cent store and pick it up for $1 or $2 or $3. You get yourself a desk calendar. You take off a month, take off that page of a month, put it on your closet door, not on the inside, because out of sight, out of mind, put it on the outside where you could see it. Get yourself some colored markers, different colors, because scientists know that if everything is in one color, it just fades to the background and you don't see it. What is this for? Start tracking. Track yourself. It's a tracking system, right? We have 12 months or 13 months. Don't worry about that. Let people debate that. Just use it as a tracking system. You went running, write it down. You worked out, write it down, or you ate garbage, the whole nachos, you write it down. You watch too much TV, write it down. Write it down. Hey, I went to sleep with the TV on yesterday. Boom. See? And keep doing that. Why? When you look back, you'll get to see your progress. You'll be like, wow, man, I ate like 3 times this past week. I ate the whole, tub of ice cream. I'm not going to do that this week, or I'm going to eat only one this week. You see, I'm going to do better. But if you're not tracking anything, you don't know what's going on. You're just going and you're drifting. It's like being in a boat, no rudder, no sail. No map, thinking you're going to get to Jamaica, to the sunny beaches over there. You're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. You might hit the lottery. I mean, anybody, that happens, But no, if you want to build something beautiful, man, knowing your purpose, why you're here, that's part of being a self-made, not self-made, self-aware person, is that like, hey, this is my calling. This is part of my calling anyway, I'm going this way. It feels right to me. So start tracking. Those are some of the tools that we have, Daryl.
Yeah, that's great. I one of the things I did when I was young, when, and I was clean, I was sober, and, but life still happens and you still got to figure it out. And I would go through these times where just all this noise and I didn't know how to find the quiet, and it was just crazy. And I would write, and it sounds like what you're talking about has an aspect of, you're putting things down to be able to take a look at it, as opposed to it just all swirling in here. And that's one of the things I highly recommend for, just finding a little bit of balance, finding a little bit of center, finding a little bit of direction, and also taking out, if you take it from here and put it on paper, it allows you to see it. You can't see it when it's up here. So when you can see it, you can start to make decisions about it. Okay, I'm not doing that anymore, or I'm going to start doing this now, or, whatever that is. So
Right.
Thank you for bringing that up.
We spoke about the journals, right? In the other podcasts and stuff like that. Like, people should journal. I think I don't journal every day. Sometimes I do. Like, I'm hot and sexy, man. Every day I'm on it, boy. And then the weeks go by, and then like a month go. I try not to let it go too far, but there's the book. I always have it around. It's always looking at me. I always see it. Like, and then I get a moment, just write it down. Some people write every day. As soon as they wake up, they write a list of gratitudes. I say try it, Daryl. Right? That's what I say. People are not even trying. Like, you're not even trying, guy. Come on, bro. Like, oh, my life is garbage. Yeah, let me hear you. Let me see what you're doing. Let me find out. When you wake up in the morning when you go to sleep, let me talk to me and tell me, right? And then I could just unravel. I'm like, bro, come on. You could do better than that. You're not even trying. Look at the food you ate. Or you said, I asked you, what you have for lunch? They ordered in, and I had, I had about 4 slices of pizza. I'm like, bro, you could do better than that. You're not trying. You could have gotten up, made yourself something to eat, or food prep. This is another. I mean, Daryl, we could talk for weeks and weeks. I mean, thank you for this time, but this is another one too, man. The food.
Yeah.
Food. We should meal prep. Real players meal prep. When you have something to do and there's a goal. Let's say you're working that job and you want to be successful, man. You got to be fishing around for what to eat. Come on, man. Like, what's the sense? You're super successful, making lots of money, great position, and you're really a go-getter, and then you're eating like garbage. Like, come on.
Right.
Food.
Stand in the gas tank doesn't work. That's so crucial. And that's how I look at it, and my wife and I, and we're going to wrap it up here shortly, but we do intermittent fasting. So we intermittent fast, 6 days a week generally. And then we allow ourselves one, little cheat, which is normally it's like popcorn, something like that. It's nothing crazy. It's not like a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, anything like that. It's but that matters
Right.
because that matters about how I feel. If I don't feel well physically, all this other stuff breaks down too, so I have to do that. Anyway, we could talk for weeks, but so let's make sure we know how to find Omziel Healing Sanctuary and anybody who wants to get in touch with Omar. How do we do that? And I will put this in the show notes.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we are the Omziel Healing Sanctuary, and Omziel, it's quite unique. If you spelled it the right way and Googled it, we would come up. There'll be some variations, but it's Omziel. That's Omziel Healing Sanctuary, which is a combination of my name, Omar, and my wife's name is Aziel. So it's Omziel. And we're located in North Bergen, New Jersey. We have the website, omzielhealingsanctuary.com. We have the YouTube channel, which is Omziel Sanctuary. And we're on Facebook, Omziel Jersey or Omziel Healing Sanctuary. We're on Instagram. We're on X. We're on LinkedIn. We try to get around quite a bit because we have something to say and a mission here. We want to get very, very clear on the mission and share it with people. So we also do short-term rentals too. We're listed on Airbnb in North Bergen, New Jersey. So if you're ever in town, all you have to do is mention Daryl, and we'll help you out with that discount. Trust me, we will. And we're only 20 minutes out of Manhattan, either Midtown or Uptown. So we're in a great position. We're like not too close to the action, but close enough to get there. So that's where you can find
cool.
me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's great. I just your energy and your commitment and your it just shines from you, Omar. So and I know everybody's feeling that who's watching right now. So thank you so much, and we'll be in touch, man. We'll be talking real soon.
Thank you.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
Peace.
If you've enjoyed When I Stop Fighting the podcast, please check out my books and my journals on my website, DarylDittmer.com. Enjoy a 15% discount by using the code PODCAST, DARYLDITTMER.com. Thanks again.